Good evening from Cairo. Good afternoon from the US. Thank you all for coming to the final chat, this fireside chat in the Get Wiser Third Summit. The Get Wiser is one of the activities of WISE, which is Women Initiative for Social Entrepreneurship. It's a movement within Ashoka, led from the South, and is part of the Everyone Changemaker movement, which we will talk about. I am honored today to have a very, I consider, friend and also a mentor as the speaker today. It will be an interesting discussion, I hope. We have with us Bill Drayton, the founder and the CEO of Ashoka Innovators for the Public. Hello, Bill.
Hello, it's thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much. I just want to share with you that I met Bill nearly 20 years ago. I was being interviewed to start Ashoka in the Arab region, in the Arab-speaking countries, and Bill Drayton interviewed me. What he did was to give me his CV, and it was the first time in my life. I was a little bit surprised, but I was so impressed. So today, I will not be able to give him the credit he deserves when I introduce him because it would take the whole hour. I will only mention things that I found interesting, so it is my choice. In Ashoka, we believe that you're born a social entrepreneur, you read young, you become a young change maker if you're given the opportunity, but also you fight for it a little bit. When Bill was 8 years old, he was in his classroom. He decided to do the school magazine. It was an interesting story. He might go into detail more in later, but he started by typing it, making copies, distributing it, and then saving money to bring a machine, a mimeograph machine, which is very interesting to say the least about. But he was 8 years old when he started that. That's why I actually believe, and everybody believes, that Bill Drayton is a social entrepreneur. Bill Drayton has a long record of founding organizations and initiatives, but I actually believe that he has a long record of building movements, of tipping the sector, of changing the framework and the mindsets. As a student, he founded organizations ranging from Yale Legislative Services to Harvard's Ashoka Table, an interdisciplinary weekly forum in the social services. After graduation from Harvard, he received an MA from Balliol College in Oxford University. He launched Ashoka in 1981 and devoted himself fully to Ashoka, starting in 1984 when he was elected as a MacArthur Fellow. Bill also has other things. Bill is one of the best, he was recognized as one of the best 10 leaders by Harvard and the US News Report. He was also an assistant administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency. And I'm not sure if you want to share this, but I remember from the interview 20 years ago that while he was working for this agency, he wrote a very strong letter to political leadership on how they should go, what they should do. I have a good memory. But for me, Bill coined the term social entrepreneur, and he created and succeeded in changing the ecosystem by building the movement of the social entrepreneurship. And recently, the last 10 or more years, he started the EACH movement, the Everyone a Change Maker movement. And today we're discussing this. We're discussing this in more details. We want to understand, we want to share the knowledge, the lessons learned that Bill Drayton has learned all these years. We want to learn from you, Bill, the movement building, the changing mindsets, how does it happen and how did it happen in the social entrepreneurship field, but also in the EACH field. We want also to learn and share with people the discovery of the new inequality and the urgency and why it is important. And we also want to see the synergies between WISE and EACH. So these are the objectives. Do you have something to say before I go into the questions?
Well, I think we should reveal a little bit about you. So you were pretty young when you started a certain business. And then the women's movement came up and laws were changed. And here we are with the WISE movement. There is a pattern here.
Yeah, now I'm blushing. Okay, so let's go back to you. As I said, the name social, the term or the name Bill Drayton is synonymous with social entrepreneurship. I continuously say because he founded the movement, but also he coined the term and really affected the ecosystem. We'd like you, Bill, to share with us how you and Ashoka were able to tip the sector, because it's a lesson for everyone who wants to start a movement, how you did the framework change and how you were able to make social entrepreneurship a global movement really now, not only recognized by the civil society, but by universities, government, companies, and the business sector. Can you share with us how you did this, lessons learned?
Well, first of all, it's a we are all serving history. Society is evolving. The central lesson of evolution is increasing cooperation. You know, one little cell ate another and they decided it was comfy getting along together. And all of a sudden, here we are with trillions of those building blocks. And now humanity is, I think, becoming one organism, a brain-like organism. And you and I and everyone who's at this wiser gathering are part of building that. And that's an amazing gift that we have. And we are a community working together to make that happen. So having a sense of the historical moment is really important. Having that base allows you to see into the future and be very clear. The other thing that helps us tremendously is that we are a community that includes 4,000 of the world's best social entrepreneurs. And they each make a life commitment to bring about a big systems or mindset change. And they're betting their life on that idea. And they don't do that unless they have a pretty good, maybe intuitive, but pretty good idea of what the world is going to be like in 15 years. And so we not only have a sense of history, but we're guided by the best focus group anywhere in the world for seeing into the future, which is the fellows. And we have learned, and especially in the last 7 or 8 years, it's become really clear that when you look at the pattern of the work of the fellows, for example, we have 1,300 fellows who are primarily focused on kids, and 89% of them put kids in charge. That's not what everyone else is doing, but 89% is pretty clear pattern. And that's exactly what you need for a world where everything is changing and everything is increasingly connected. So the biggest prediction of that focus group is, we live in a world where everything is changing faster and faster, and everything is more and more broadly and more deeply connected. And in fact, that fact has been accelerating for 320 years roughly. And we are now at a moment when both those dynamics, each feeding the other, is going so fast that we're hitting the turning point. And so part of the challenge that all of us have is, we've got to play a different game. We have an opportunity. We must play a different game now. We can very quickly see a much, much better world. So, or we can have a very divided world. And we're all here to get to the better world. So in an everything changing world, that's a new game. And you can't play repetition. assembly line law firms, that doesn't work anymore. You've got to, if you're a really good baseball player and the game is now chess, you're out. And that's happening to a lot of people. That's the new inequality. Everyone in this gathering is really good at change, and we're helping one another get better at it. For the 60%, the 2/3 of the world's people who are in the new game, we're already experiencing this incredible gift that all the people around us are trying to help us be a better player, and we are trying to help everyone around us be a better player. So the heart of this new society is everyone has the right to be a giver. Because to have a life, you've got to be a giver. That's what brings health, happiness, longevity. That's what makes societies work. But it's now chess, not baseball. And we've got to make sure that everybody is able to play. And that's the everyone, a change maker movement. We mean everyone. And women are, of course, half of any categorization of humanity you have. Children, young people, older people, people from the North Pole or from Thailand. You name the category, and women are central. And so I think, going to the purpose of this meeting, we have an opportunity to serve women. In doing that, we're serving all. So it's, everyone a giver, and the biggest power, the biggest gift you can give is giving other people the gift of being able to give. And that is, just imagine a world where that is the core dynamic. What we all want to do is help everyone have a life, have the power to give, most fundamental right. And every time we do that, we grow. We are happier, healthier. Now, this is a dynamic where there's no way the problems outrun the solutions. It is a dynamic where we don't leave people behind because everyone is helping everyone else. That's what you have to do in a team of teams world. And I think this is really the most important in a bottom line in a way. Everyone here, we have the experience of expressing love and respect in action every day. But some people don't. And in the world we're building, they will. And so, our job as social entrepreneurs is we're the best at building, at causing structural change for the good. So working together, and WISE is a really important part of that.
Well, thank you so much. I think you've already started talking about the each movement. It is very important for us and the people who are listening to us, who are enablers and social entrepreneurs and young change makers, and people who are interested in the field, to understand that there is a new inequality, as you said. We are no longer in a world of repetition. The world is changing, the jobs are changing, the environment is changing, and if we don't have all of us allowing ourselves, our children, our colleagues, our partners, everyone to be a change maker, then we are going to be, as you said, treated unequally or marginalized or not be able to survive in a tougher world. And I think this is very important. And I think Ashoka, in every country and continent now, we're trying to work with our partners to create an everyone a change movement. In order to go further a little bit there, can we explain in your own words, since you do it much better than any one of us, what do you mean by change maker? Who is the Ashoka Young change maker? So who is the change maker? What are the skills or traits or characteristics? And who are the Ashoka Young change makers?
So who is a change maker? You give yourself permission to see an opportunity or a problem, to dream of a solution, to build a team and make it happen, change your world. And it's every time you do that, you get better at it. Every time you do that, you're serving the people around you. And so in the life cycle of any human, it's really important that people have the first experience as early as they can. And certainly by the time children become young people, which is around 11, 12, 13, all the tribes of people recognize that turning point, bar mitzvah, confirmation, tribal rights, etc. People are totally ready to have a dream, build a team, and change their world. And if we make sure that every young person has that opportunity, then we've solved the problem of the 40%. If we don't, we're guaranteeing that we're going to have a very large number of young people not have a life. That's just criminal. So the adults who are not used to young people being powerful, all the stupid bureaucratic arguments, insurance, the janitors won't like it, blah, blah, blah. And, if we can tip a school, all the schools, all the youth programs, the communities of faith and their programs with young people so that it is the norm for every young person. Yeah, you have a problem, think of a solution and build a team. That's what everyone around you do. You as an 11-year-old come to school, you have a problem. I'm thinking of a young woman, and I asked her, well, what's your venture? This was a meeting of Ashoka Youth Ventures. My brother is autistic, and all through school, I would cry when he was mistreated. And now we fixed that. Well, how did you do that? Well, we get together whenever we see a special student who's not being treated well, and we figure out what to do, and then we go and do it, and we're persistent. That's 90% her words. That was her gesture. And she's 12. She knows that she has her power for life. I asked her, how many student groups are there in your middle school? Over 50. How many schools do you know have over 50 student groups? So she walked into a school, a poor, rural, non-elite school, where Ashoka's network had had an impact. And this was the norm. So all the kids said, you got a problem, think of a solution, look around, that's the way to do it. And she did. And she contributed to that culture. And she has gotten her PhD, basically. She has what you have to be a change maker, a giver. And society has done the right thing. we have given her the power she has to have a life. And that's the right of giving, the right of the power to give. So that's a third of the fellows put kids in charge. We know what the results are. That's where we learned this. And then we've learned, and this is the last 7, 8 years, how, once we understand what the new pattern is, how do we actually get society to move? And one of the things I hope we'll be able to discuss is that we call these later stages the jujitsu process. And what are the most powerful forces in society? And if we can get those forces around this redefinition of what success in growing up is, or it could be how you redefine the health field. What are the most powerful forces? What are the biggest, most powerful, ethical, good organizations in those forces? And then we've learned, and so for changing education, that's education unions, ed schools, general publishers, specialist publishers in a carefully selected state or metro. If you can get a dozen of those organizations to see, oh, this is the new reality. The people this union serves, this university serves, our field, this is the big change they have to go through. If we help them do that, we are providing the greatest value to them. That is the best strategy, and it doesn't matter what the field or organization is. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become the main organization in the field or to protect an outstanding position. Now, we've learned how to do that. And I just want to give you an example. I know Nani is here with us, but this is I think it's such a brilliant example of how the women's focus can help each movement, and in return, be greatly strengthened. So Nani took our tool, Your Kids, how you can take any group of adults, help them see new game, critical for your daughter. You meet a young woman who really has her power, and then you help that group of adults learn some very, very simple tool that any adult can use to make sure that their daughter really is on the path of this young woman I was describing. And when we, this is so simple, we are able to help the union, help its members, help the school board members, all the people they deal with. Well, what Nani did, which is so brilliant, is she took that tool and sat down and used it with 77 leaders of the women's movement in Indonesia. And that gave her an MRI machine. She could look into any organization in the society and map, who are the people who would understand this and who will be the next generation of leaders for the union or the university or the community of faith or whatever. Well, that has been critical for the fact that Indonesia is now one of the 3 places leading the world. But think about what else is happening here. Those 77 women, well, they'll see men as well, but they're certainly going to know who the women potential next generation leaders are. And then we give those women this agenda. Here is the future of the union, and here's how it works. And we give them the connections to the universities and the publishers, etc. Oh, a lot of glass ceilings breaking in the most important organizations. This is pretty good. So I think if one of the things I wanted to suggest to this community, this is where the action is, this is where the greatest power is. And if we have the women's movement and the each movement, which are the same basically, alive practically, this is really smart. This is all Nani's creation.
Yeah, Nani is our colleague. She is the head of Southeast Asia. She's also an Ashoka Fellow and a great friend. And I'm so proud. I'm always proud of my colleagues, especially women, but also men. I think this is very important. What you described to us and how Nani worked also is very important because you're mapping the way so people can visualize how things are done. And I think we are learning also in Ashoka. And I am very happy that Ashoka Nigeria now is also, has been doing great work. And of course, Brazil is our role model. And we are there, trying to be there. But I think also talking about young change makers, talking about women, social entrepreneurs, one of the things in the WISE movement that we're doing is in what we call the intergenerational conversations, whether in the changemaker huddle or even in the Get Wiser. What we have been trying to do is invite young change makers, Ashoka young change makers who are working in a particular field, and then an Ashoka fellow, a mature woman who's also working in the same field. And we found it fascinating, the conversations, the exchange of experience, and the respect that each shows to the other, because we recognize the young change maker and the mature social entrepreneur as really important players in the new world and the new game. Two things. How do you see this and what do you think of it? And how do you see this useful to the each movement?
Well, I just came an hour or so ago from meeting with our Nigerian colleagues, and they're getting 700 phone calls a day as a result of the breakout. So each is now news all across Nigeria. And guess what the single most important element of that is? People, I want to join this movement. I want to make sure that my daughter has this. How do I do this? And it was the stories and the articulation of the new Ashoka Young Changemakers from Nigeria that just electrifies people. So, yes, this is part of tearing down the walls of ageism and all those isms. We've learned that we choose Ashoka Young Changemakers with the same rigor as fellows. It's a small number. These are young people who totally have had their dream, built a team, and changed their world. And now they want to grow their superpower and they want everyone to have it. They have experienced how life-changing it is. And so they are very, very powerful allies. I was describing the Your Kids methodology, new game critical for your daughter, and then let us introduce you to, and for 5 minutes, a young woman, Manat, for example, tells her story. And the evolution of every animal species has people completely hardwired way deep down to be deeply moved when they see a young person ready to fly or flying. And I am sure pigeons and giraffes have the same thing because no species would exist if they didn't. And so AYCers at Youth Ventures have a power that we don't. And they have an ability to learn really quickly. And who else is in a better position to help a graduate school of education figure out how to change the schools in this completely different way of operating? Well, these young people have done that. They have changed their school. And what about actually helping schools change, school systems? I mean, there's so many ways. And in doing this, we're tearing down this very strange phenomenon that we have been disempowering young people when we should be doing just the opposite. And I just give you one statistic there. This is from the New Yorker. In the United Kingdom in 1990, 94% of elementary school kids got themselves from place to place on their own. 3 years ago, that was down to 7%. Now, what if we want people to be powerful? You don't take away their ability to take risks, make mistakes, fall down, pick themselves up, etc. And we're at this wonderful transition moment where people are beginning to recognize this isn't so smart. So Netflix, a month or so ago, purchased some episodes from a Japanese television program called Old Enough. And this shows very, very young children, preschool, going and doing errands on their own. Now, contrast that with what I was just reporting for the UK. Well, this has been a wake-up moment. Now, and the reason I'm telling you this story is this is one of many symptoms that we are coming to the end of the process of helping people become aware. And now we're going to hit the turning point years when things really speed up. So you have to get to the 1% early adopters. And everyone here has contributed to that. But once you get the 1%, then things start moving. And you mentioned the word change maker at the beginning. Well, we invented that word, more than 40 years ago. We took to change and to make, put them together. And it made it into the dictionary about 9 years ago. And now it's everywhere because people need it. So I've just given you a couple of examples. And this is very exciting, but it's also challenging for all of us. And, the goal that you set for WISE, that we want to have 50% cumulatively, not just now, but catch up cumulatively, be women. And so this is a moment where we really need to work together because the turning point years, it'll be 4, 5, 6 years. And women will either, and all the other groups that have suffered before, will either leapfrog into the new society, or the danger is that they will slide down even further and be part of the new inequality. And so for women, if you look at Ashoka, who do we have as diamond leaders? Only one of them is a man. That's all the continents. You look at the Ashoka Young Changemaker elections, the most recent one in the US, there were 12 finalists, 11 were elected, and 10 of them were women. So,
I'm a believer,
this is such an opportunity for the women's movement to lead for all the categories, to end the remnants of the glass ceilings.
And Bill, I agree totally. I mean, I you know how I believe that women can change the world, but I also think, remember with Rahid Bali, which is a platform and a publisher with, when we did the change making, the mom challenge, the change making mom challenge, we were surprised. I mean, we were little, we did your kids, and then we asked them, and then we asked them to come back with their stories, and they came back with 2 minutes and 3 minute stories that the kids themselves were saying, and some of the mothers were saying. And we were surprised. It's continuing, and people are getting more excited than we thought. But you're right. When the mother watches your kids the way and our program, they think I want my kid to be there too. And I also want to reiterate what you said. The world is changing. We are no longer in factories. It resonates with me when you said the schools were created in these classrooms because people were graduating to be in factories. Now people are online, different jobs. People are going to Mars, and they're trying to do this in the moon. The world is changing. The jobs are changing. The skills needed are changing. The use of our minds. The game is chess, not baseball. More or less. So I totally agree, and I think in the WISE movement we are very keen to be part of the each movement, not only because we believe that women are 50% and we should be change makers, and not only because we're mothers, but I think because we are social entrepreneurs and women that have overcome challenges, and we care about future generations, whether they're our kids or somebody else. So I really agree with that. And I really, really thank you for all the insights that you gave us now. I want to change a little bit and ask you about something. Can I? Okay. It will not be long, but I think you were very clear about how we want to create an ecosystem that supports the new game. The unions, the education, the ministries of education or the education system, then teachers unions, the publishers, and the media, all the groups that we call them the Jitsu partners. And I think this is very important. But we also are concerned in Ashoka with companies. And we want to create change-making companies and make the companies hire change-making people. Can you relate this to the each movement?
Well, if you're a company and you don't have all your people be change makers, you're in trouble. That's true for any organization. And the second test is your company and everyone a change maker culture? Is it, in other words, are your people change makers, and do you have a fluid, open, integrated team of teams of teams architecture? And any company that doesn't do that isn't going to make it, because all these different parts, all the different groups of humanity now are not isolated institutions sitting and repeating some little thing. They're all interconnected. And like the brain, the combinations are going to change faster and faster and be bigger and more varied internally. And you have to have all your people be change makers, and you have to have this architecture. So we're already seeing the dying off of many companies that aren't making the transition. And it's a painful process. And it's not just companies. Think about countries. If any country doesn't ensure that all its people are change makers, two things are going to happen. A, it's going to fall behind because it can't compete and it can't connect. And second of all, it's going to be deeply divided. And we haven't talked about this in terms of the new inequality, but when you crush a part of your population, destroy, don't have a life, can't give, can't be a part of society. Well, they blame themselves to some degree. And in the US, that has meant that the low change-making counties have lost 4 years of life expectancy in a generation. This is crushing people, it's destroying them. Well, the other thing they psychologically have to do is blame somebody else. And the demagogues come and figure out who to make the scapegoats that won't cost them anything. And we know what happens because we've now had 8-9 years where, when you have these very sharp curves going up, the rate of change and connection, well, in the last decade, 2 decades, we have left people behind. And unlike the old inequalities, this one gets worse every day. And we are totally, totally crushing people. And on the one hand, people who were part of the old inequalities can leapfrog ahead. And there's overwhelming demand for anyone who has these abilities. There is no shortage of job demand for anyone at this meeting. Quite to the contrary. And but on the other hand, if you're part of the 40% where the demand is going down, well, that's pretty grim. And salaries go down because the supply is bigger than the demand. And it's just, so the society won't compete, won't connect, and will be divided and won't be able to solve its problems. That's a pretty bad state to be in. The alternative is that, and I think this is really important, everyone here can make differences. Young people you can help them. It's very easy. Whatever organization, the people here can help any organization see the need to make this transition and do it. And then we can work together with these most powerful forces in society, what we call the jujitsu partners and the metro areas, and help them. So thank you for getting everyone together. And now we have to go and do it.
Thank you, Bill. And really, I wish we had more time. There are so many things I want to ask you. Everything you told us was very helpful. I, of course, loved everything, and more so that women are integral to the each movement, because they are in many ways. And so, and we're learning from each other. We're learning from the other regions. So thank you so much for joining us and for giving us your time. Do you want to say last word?
Iman, thank you for creating this movement. It's fabulous. And thanks for everyone being a part of it.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This will be recorded and shared with everyone. Thanks for our supporters, for the team in Ashoka Arab World, and also for Geneva Gleason and Hadil and everyone else. But Geneva has been really dynamic. And all the teams from Ashoka in every program where they joined us in the last 3 days. Thank you, Bill Drayton, and thank you, everyone.